Hello everyone, it's Tony here from Lockster Reads. This is just a quick, well, it won't be quick, that's a lie. This is a video to talk through what I've read in July so far. I've got two hard copy ones which so I can show you the covers of those. As an experiment, and this is the third time I've tried to do this video. The first time I realised that my headphones were plugged in but I wasn't talking into the microphone, so I sounded like I was in the other room when I was doing my talk. The second time I decided to carry out some experiments with lighting live that you don't want to see. What I've done is I've got copies of the covers of all the books, of the ones where I got them from the library and have returned them. They're Kindle or the two that I read in the British Library, and they're on here. They don't all come out very clearly on the screen, but they mostly do, because the brightness of the light is the problem. So we'll start with one of the ones that we've got on hard copy of, which was Hotel de Lac by Anita Brookner. This is the fourth Anita Brookner novel I've read. It's also a killing two birds with one stone, as it is a tick on my list of Anita Brookner books, and it's a tick on my list of Booker Prize winners. It was published in 1984. I believe it won the 84 Booker Prize. It might be the 85 one, but it won the Booker Prize. I really like Anita Brookner's books, and I really enjoy this one. This is probably her most famous novel, because it's the one that won the Booker Prize. It's the story of Edith Hope, who is a romance novelist who's found herself in a Swiss hotel on the cusp of the end of the season, because of events at home. She's sort of been driven into exile, temporary probably. You don't find out about what it was, although there are hints about that as you read through the book. It's beautifully written, like all Anita Brookner. It's funny, but not entirely funny. There's some real thoughts in here about relationships between men and women, what it means to be a writer. If you like reading romance fiction, she has some interesting thoughts in here about romance as a genre. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Can't recommend it highly. Is it my favourite Anita Brookner book so far? Maybe not, but it's up there. So yeah, really recommend that. Then I read Rendezvous with Rama by Arthur C. Clarke. This is a science fiction novel, a first contact novel. Arthur C. Clarke is very, very much a fan of first contact novels. I'm thinking Childhood's End, Rendezvous with Rama, 2001. They're all different kinds of first contact. Actually, they have a similarity in some ways. First contact novels. Rendezvous with Rama is classic science fiction. It was published in 1973, so it's late-ish for Arthur C. Clarke. But it is a very interesting book that balances practical science fiction, and what am I thinking? A little bit of philosophy. It's slight. Classic science fiction is often slightly dry, but not to the extent that it's unreadable. I really enjoyed it. It's the second time I've read it. It's part of a trilogy, and I started the second book because I'd enjoyed the first book so much, and then I DNF'd that after about 35, 45 pages because it's terrible. It's co-written with an author whose name I can't remember, and it decides to add a character. It's set sometime after the original book, and another ship has entered the is entered the solar system, and they're sending out another group of people to investigate it. That's what sorry, I haven't really talked about. That's what the first book is about. A mysterious object enters the solar system, and the world sends a party out to investigate it. And the book is mainly about the investigation of the ship and trying to work out what the civilization was that created it and what its plan is. The second one, just for some reason, they introduced this character, this beautiful Italian journalist, who seems to be up to no good, and it just made it virtually unreadable. So read Rendezvous with Rama. Don't bother with the rest. People may take issue with me on that, but that's my personal feelings. The third one that I read was A Grave for a Dolphin by Alberto Denti di Pirajno. That's probably badly pronounced. I don't even know if you can see that because that's quite bright. Now, I read this in the British Library because it's almost impossible to find a copy of this at an even vaguely reasonable price. It was published in 1956. The reason I think it's so popular is that it is included on David Bowie's list of favourite books, and it had a lyrical influence on his Heroes album, and I think because of that, and because it probably wasn't a hugely popular book at the time, I could be wrong about that. It has a rarity value that the cheapest I could find was like 350 quid. So I went to the British Library and read a copy there, which was missing its cover. It's an odd book. This is one of those ones where I read it out of as a sort of not quite calling it a box ticking exercise is wrong, because I kind of enjoyed it, but it's the sort of book. Basically, Denti was a Italian colonial officer in Eritrea under Mussolini. Not a good start. And it contains language and discussions around that are exactly what you would expect from a book written by that sort of person at that sort of time. However, it is also a collection of folklore and mythology from that area. He basically, people tell his story. He gets told stories and he's written them down. Now, I can't say for definite, because I'm not an expert on the subject, whether these were real stories from the area or he made them up and has claimed them to be real stories. But they do have a certain verisimilitude. Oh, I can't believe I picked that word out of the air. And they also have they also make it clear that Eritrea is not one homogenous country where everybody is the same. The tales come from different regions, from different religions, from different tribal groups. So it does give you a picture of a sort of cultural world in which Denti was operating. But I can't recommend it because the language and the fact you can't find it for love nor money, really. I don't think anybody will ever republish it. It's not in the modern publishing world. I can't imagine they'd ever publish an English language edition again. Although I think it was written in English, because Denti was half English, half Italian. So yeah, I can't recommend it, but it was an interesting read. It could have done with a map, but I think there might have been a map in the original book, but it had disappeared from the copy that the British Library had. And then the next one, I'm trying to keep this short, but I'm struggling, so sorry about this, everybody. Was this is going Seamus Heaney. Move my finger out of the way. Seamus Heaney, Human Chain, which is another Seamus Heaney poetry collection. I had read this before, but had totally forgotten to add it to my spreadsheet, which is stupid. I enjoyed it again this time. I can't recommend Seamus Heaney enough. He's one of my favourite poets. I think if you want to start reading more poetry, Seamus Heaney is not a bad place to start. And it's my intention now to read all of Seamus Heaney. So yeah, if you want a good poetry book, that's where I'd go. Then a bit of non-fiction. There is Dermot MacCulloch's Lower Than Angels, A History of Christianity, Sexuality and Christianity, Sex and Christianity. Have I got that title right? A History of Sex and Christianity, which was written in 2024. It's an excellent book. Dermot MacCulloch writes really good history. He can be quite funny. I think if you've read his Christianity, the First 3,000 Years, there is a lot of crossover with that book, and it wouldn't surprise me if this book, Lower Than Angels, came out of the work he did and research he did for the First 3,000 Years. I think it's very possible that he had a file with sex in it. It wouldn't probably have been called that for various reasons, but and that he then thought, oh, I could get this as a book on its own. It's very good on the way that Christianity has changed its approach to things like marriage. That for a long time there wasn't a set religious marriage ceremony in the early Christian church. The issues around homosexuality would change over time. That there are some people in the history of Christianity who have contributed unpleasant things to how Christianity is now. It goes up to the modern day, so it does deal with some of the sort of more fundamentalist Christianity, and how it's been adopted by right-wing people in various countries as a sort of weapon to beat people they don't like with. I'd sort of buy it for your MAGA uncle at Christmas and then whack him over the head with it every time he says something stupid. But yeah, very enjoyable. Then I read a trio of books by Harry Pearson. Now, Harry Pearson's right. Basically some not very nice things have happened in this house early in the month, and I needed to read something light. Something that I enjoyed. So I went back to Harry Pearson's The Far Corner, a Mazy dribble through Northeast football, written in 1994. It basically uses a series of different football matches to tell stories about the clubs concerned, about the Northeast as a region, about famous players from those regions, about Harry Pearson's own life. They're very funny. It can be quite surprisingly moving at some points, and it deals with football at different levels, from the sort of the top division down to the non-league stuff. Then when I finished that and I really enjoyed it again, I went on to the book, which one I haven't read, Harry Pearson's The Farther Corner, which is a follow-up book that he wrote in 2023, which he called A Sentimental Return to Northeast Football. This one focuses more. Football has changed a lot between the original Far Corner in 1994 and this one in 2023. It's a very much more ugly game in some respects. His focus in this is actually generally more on the non-league games. There's less outside the non-league, but it's the same format, different game, an excuse to tell stories about the region, about players, about places, about life, and can't highly recommend it. And then the final Harry Pearson book I read was No Pie, No Priest, A Journey Through the Folk Sports of Britain. Now that covers things you might well know very well, cheese rolling, but it also covers a lot of other sports, crown green bowling, street road bowling, skittles, there's there's a lot. Again, it's sort of similarly structured in that every chapter has a different deals with a different sport and uses that sport as a centerpiece around which to build broader stories about the culture of Britain. It's funny actually how sometimes you'll read a history of a social history of Britain, and it'll have it'll almost entirely ignore sport as if it doesn't matter, when actually it's a pretty important part of British cultural history, um, and always has been. Um, it's I think it's usually put to the side because it's not posh enough, not seemingly significant enough. Um, but I think you can't tell in British history without having some discussion of the role and importance of sport and games in that history. Again, I recommend it. It's funny. Harry Pearson is a very funny writer. His writing is also very clear and straightforward. Um, I think because he was a journalist, so it has the benefit of being written by somebody that had to write clearly always. Yeah, three great books. I'm so glad I read them. Um, then and actually they were exactly what I needed to get myself into a good place again. Um, then I finished. This one's going to be bad on the light. The first three books, they're in one sort of volume here, of Anthony Powell's A Dance to the Music of Time. Um, I actually finished two this month, The Buyer's Market and The Acceptance World. I'd finished the first one earlier. A Dance to the Music of Time is a 12-book series that follows a group of friends um, through from school to, I think it's just post-war Britain. So it goes, they're at school in the post-World War One period. It goes through the 20s and 30s to through World War Two and into the immediate aftermath. It's central narrator whose name annoyingly I've now forgotten, which I should beat myself up with. But it's told from his point of view. It's funny. It's Proustian in its attempts to tell the story of everything: art, war, peace, love. Even and it's mostly told from. I should stop and say it's mostly told from the point of view of wealthy people. Um, but it's funny. It's genuinely very funny. I can't recommend it enough. I'm only 3 books into it, but unless it takes a catastrophic fall off, I think this might be one of the best things I've ever read, and I recommend it to you all. At least to start point. If I change my mind, you can hold it against me later. And then I finished my Jean Rhys reading project by reading. This one won't come out very well because it's white. By reading Smile Please, an unfinished autobiography, which came out in 1979, which was shortly after Jean Rhys died. She hadn't been very well, and it wasn't completed in time. So the editor pulled it all together, added some extra bits to it, including a very good, the most powerful bit of it, which is some diary entries from when she was staying in a pub in somewhere, and it's her thoughts over that period. Jean Rhys was obviously had a difficult life and was possibly a difficult woman, particularly as she got ill. But she was also a survivor. She was also fiercely loyal to her friends. It's an interesting read. It sort of only takes up. It basically covers the early part of her life and goes up to when she comes to England, and becomes an actress, and it takes through to when she's about to publish her first novel. That's the main bit of it. It's unfortunate I read it when I did, because by the time I'd got to it, I'd read a book I'm going to talk about now, next, and all the novels, and I kind of knew a lot of the stories in it, so it was a bit like just a refresher course on Jean Rhys's early life. It's very well written. Jean Rhys is a great writer. Her writing is very pared down, and it actually one of the things I discovered from the reading this month is how much she worked on paring down her writing. I've now read everything Jean Rhys has ever written, as far as I know. 5 novels, the short stories, and Smile Please. She isn't the easiest person to read because her books are quite bleak sometimes, but I think her writing is beautiful. Um, I would say if you want to read any, I wouldn't necessarily do what I did and start with the first novel and work your way through. Um, each novel kind of improves. It almost tells similar stories or has similar themes, but they get better and better until Good Morning Midnight, which is like the perfect Jean Rhys novel. Um, so I'd recommend reading Good Morning Midnight. I'd also recommend reading Wide Sargasso Sea, which is her Jane Eyre prequel, unless you are absolutely in love with Jane Eyre, in which case I would suggest you don't read it because it will maybe have an impact on what you think about that book, particularly about what you think about Mr. Rochester. But I think, yeah, brilliant writer. Glad I read her. Wouldn't necessarily the short stories as well. Actually, I should say very quickly, the short stories are fantastic. Some of the short stories are sort of incorporated in some of the novels at some points, sort of not entirely, but sort of in a I don't even know what I'm trying to say there, but they are. But the short stories are excellent as well. So Penguin Modern Classics do the collected short stories. So I would say pick up a copy of that if you like short stories. I know some people don't really like reading short stories. I think they're very hard to do well. But yeah, so that was that, and then to almost complete the Jean Rhys thing, I read. I used to live here once. The Haunted Life of Jean Rhys by Miranda Seymour. This is a biography of Jean Rhys. It's really, really good. I recommend it. It tells the story of her whole life, and about her writing as well. It's very good on. It's not just the life, but the art as well. Very well written. There are earlier biographies of Jean Rhys which I haven't read, and they aren't available. They aren't in print, I don't think, at the moment. Well, it wasn't when I did my search. But I would say this will do. If you want to know, if you want to do a completist Jean Rhys thing like I did, then this is a good thing to read. Jean Rhys is the ideal person to do a reading project like this with, because, as I said, it's 5 novels, short novels, collected short stories. And Smile Please, which is also short. And the short stories is probably the biggest page count of anything she ever wrote, because it's all collected together. So yeah, ideal. And then finally, so far, there's a book I'll show you, which I'm about to finish. I Capture the Castle by Dodie Smith. This is exactly the kind of book that 10 years ago I would never have read. It's a girl's book, in inverted commas. It's not a girl's book, actually. But it's the sort of thing I would have thought of when I read the synopsis and would have started reading. I'd it's a girl's book. I was an idiot 10 years ago. I'm probably pretty much of an idiot now, but I was definitely an idiot 10 years ago. I really love this book. I think I would put it in my top 10 novels of all time. I'm definitely going to reread it. It's a world I'd love to live in. The characters are such fun. The story, there's a sort of, I don't know, almost Austen-esque element to it. I don't know if that's right. But yeah, it's basically about a very slightly eccentric bohemian family living in a castle that's falling apart. And their father is a writer, but he can't seem to write. He's gone into a slump after an incident where he got really angry. But it's written it's written from the point of view of Cassandra Mortmain, which was the youngest daughter, and it's her diary entries, and she seems to be a wonderful character, great character, and the writing is so good. Honestly, I can't. I think of all the books I've read this month so far, I'd say this, Hotel de Lac, and the first 3 books of The Dance to the Music of Time are probably, fiction-wise anyway, certainly the best things I've read. I'd almost say they are the best things I've read this year so far, but that's probably not true if I actually sat down and analysed what I've read this year so far. but that's what I've read so far in July. I will probably finish a reread of Martin Gilbert's In Search of Churchill. In fact, I will finish it because I'm not far from the end. I've read this several times over the years. Martin Gilbert wrote the epic biography of. Well, he picked up from Randolph Churchill wrote in inverted commas the first 2 volumes, and then Martin Gilbert took over thereafter. It's a massive sort of 8 volumes, I think, set. This is about how the biography came together and the working methodology that was applied. It's actually quite a useful guide. If I was teaching history at university, I would put this on the reading list in the first term to help people get not necessarily the perfect idea of how historians work, but sort of practical test case of how historians work. It's very well written. Martin Gilbert clearly has a soft spot for Churchill, who is a more controversial figure now than he probably was even when this came out. I think it came out in the 90s, 1994. He's not Hag. I've only read 1 volume of the biography, which was the volume about 1939 to 1941. It's not hagiography. He doesn't make Churchill out to be a saint, but I think he's got a very positive view of Churchill that possibly might not be entirely how people see him now. Although I am inclined, for all of Churchill's crimes, crimes is not the right word, for all of Churchill's foibles, I'm inclined to lean a bit more to Martin Gilbert's view of him as a person. But when you have a life as long as Churchill's and you're involved in politics for as long as Churchill, I don't think you can expect consistency, and you can't expect the views to not be those of a Victorian colonial posh bloke. But yeah, this is really good book. I really do recommend it. I don't think it's in print anymore. I think because this is an old copy that I bought a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. So that's it. That's a long video. I apologise for that. But I just wanted to go through everything I'd read so far. Hopefully the phone thing we can improve on. At some point I'll learn how to edit these videos properly and put the pictures in so you can see them up there or whatever. But yeah, that's it. Have a good one. I'm going to do some videos. I'm sort of making a list of topics I want to do videos on, which I will do next week at some point. At least one of next week at some point. Other than that, have a good one, and I will see you all next week.